Hey there, Amplifiers. We have an awesome guest here who's really done some great things when it comes to podcasts. It's an honor to have him on my podcast. I came across this rockstar professional when going to a podcast festival. Picked up a copy of his books that really caught my eye, Podcast Profits. Growth Amplifiers all are about, amplifying their business, increasing profits. And one conversation that is worth having is you're one conversation away. And our guest today is the Chief Evangelist Officer from Interview Valet. And I would love to welcome him to Growth Amplifiers. So Thomas Schwab, welcome to Growth Amplifiers. Thanks for being here today.
Hey, Kenny, I am thrilled to be here. And you look at it, we're all one conversation away. We had that conversation there back in real life. Remember the good old days when we did that? And
Yes.
Now we're here. And hopefully that this conversation will spark other ideas and help people grow their brand and their business.
I really love that concept because we talked about, isn't there one funnel away or one click away? Right. But you mentioned, it's great to have technology. It's great to have funnels. But if you don't have the right conversations, it's not going to get people into the opportunity to utilize those funnels. It's all about creating relationships. So I'd love for you to, let's start off just with a little bit of your background in Interview Valet so people kind of have a framework of where you're coming from and your expertise.
Yeah. So my background is more as an engineer and an inbound marketer, right? Using content to attract, engage, and delight people. And one of the things that we saw, a dozen years ago, 20 years ago, was that you could use guest blogs to start that conversation with other audiences, leveraging other people's platforms. So in 2014, we started to test it and say, could you use podcast interviews the same way? It worked so great that we started to beta test it and started Interview Valet in 2015, the end of 2015. And it's a done-for-you service. We work with authors, speakers, coaches, brands to get them out on podcasts that their ideal customers are already listening to. It's that whole idea of leveraging other people's audiences so that you can have that conversation. Instead of trying to break through the noise, just get in on the conversation.
Breaking through the noise, that is becoming more and more challenging in today's market. There was a lot of people already online, and we also had a lot of people that were just resistant to being online. They just like to do things in person. But then we had this wonderful little pandemic come over, and now all the people that weren't online are now online too. So it's even noisier than it was before.
And can you say it's getting tougher? I think it's getting funnier, that idea of breaking through the noise. Mm-hmm. The idea that with my marketing budget, that I can break through the noise of the big players is laughable. I think most of us have to admit we're not breaking through the noise, we're adding to the noise. And a lot of times the people that are telling us to break through the noise are the ones that are selling us the newest megaphone, right? So I just look at that and say, I don't want to compete. I'd rather just have a conversation and get in on the conversation that people are listening to.
Recently I started working with a client that had mentioned that, they had built their business and it's been successful, but within the last couple of years, the same marketing tactics that they used to use that worked so fine are no longer getting the results they need. And so they kind of were up, plateaued, and then they've been experiencing a decline because they haven't adapted to the market.
And I think that's true. Like what I learned in the military is that all tactics have an expiration date, right? And I think it's the same way in marketing and business, right? Burma Shave built their entire business up over billboards, right? People would drive along to see the next Burma Shave billboard. There were companies that built their entire business on Yellow Pages ads. So it worked well for a while, but then, things evolve. Mm-hmm. And so from that standpoint, trying to copy what was done a few years ago, it's already outdated. Everybody's doing it. So you have to figure out what new things you can use with that same old strategy. And to me, the strategy has always been, marketing at its heart is having a conversation with somebody that could be an ideal customer. It used to be a billboard was a great way to have a conversation, or yellow pages, or
Right.
even, remember emails where you got mail, and we all were excited for that. And so trying to just figure out what's the next way, that next medium where you can really start that conversation.
And I think, podcasts, if you get into the right mindset of how you can leverage a podcast, right? Some people get into this kind of sort of myth sort of fantasy of, oh, I see this other person start a podcast, so I'm going to start one. And they look like they're just absorbing gobs of money. So I'm going to start one, and I'm just going to be rich out the gate. And that's all I'm going to do. Not that you can't accomplish that. However, that I believe is more of a myth and the exception, right? And go ahead.
That's the dream, right?
Right.
I remember, well, I was going to say Sunday football, right? When we
Mm-hmm.
used to have that too, where you'd watch somebody playing football. That looked like fun.
Right.
Being out there, people cheering for you for 4 hours, or probably not even that. And you get paid millions and millions of dollars of it for it. It's like, that looks like fun. Every little kid is like, that's what I'm going to do when I grow up. But they don't realize how tough it is, how it's only the top ones that are making that. And, it's like podcasts. Anybody that says it's easy to do it has either never done it or never done it well. They don't see the work that goes behind it.
I will second and third and maybe fourth that. And I've seen it for myself and for others who have kind of jumped into that. Oh, this is so easy. I'm just going to record this, send it out, and all automatically this is just going to work. But there's more that meets the eye. I can't remember the commercial, which brand it is. I think it's an insurance commercial where the guy sees someone juggling chainsaws, and he's like, oh, yeah, let me try that. It looks easy, right? It looks like all you need to do is maybe just talk to people, record it, and then magic may just happen. However, as you well know, and you've documented in your book, there's a lot more that meets the eye, and you've got to have a real strategy. You really have to have a process. And if you don't, you can spend a lot of time and not get a lot of results.
On both sides of the microphone. I totally agree with you. Like the podcasters that just hit record and record it and then put it up there, and they're wondering why they're not seeing results. Well, where's the process? Where's the system? Where's the goal that you're trying to get? And then the flip side too, the guests that just say, well, I'll just go on and talk about anything. I won't be strategic on it. I believe that exposure brings opportunity, but it's got to be the right exposure. Right? If you just randomly go up to people on the street and say hi to them and give them your elevator pitch, there's the chance that you could meet that one person that you need to meet, but it's a small chance. I think it's the same way on podcasts where people just, I'll show up. If I build it, they will come. I'll just talk and everybody will come and love me. No, there's still a lot of conversations on podcasts, and you've got to do something to be memorable and then help them actually go from being a passive listener to an active visitor to your site, and then ultimately an engaged lead.
I love that whole concept. That's one of the things with growth amplifiers. We think about, it's strategy. You got to have a strategy. If you jump too quick to tactics, like you said, new tactics can work for a while, and you can use tactics. They're part of a strategy, but they're not a strategy themselves. And then systems. And so you've got both, which is really why you're effective with helping your audience leverage podcasts. You have both the strategy side. You're helping people think through what's the game plan? What are you trying to achieve? How are we going to get that? And then you have the systems to make sure that it can get done consistently and then produce the best results. So
it's funny. Sometimes people will come to us and say, hey, can you help me get on podcasts? And I'm like, there's over 1 million podcasts out there. You don't need my help to do this, right? But if your question is, can you help me build my business, to build my brand, to amplify my growth with podcasts? Yeah, we can do that. And getting you booked on a podcast is an important part of that, but it's just a small piece too.
Yeah. And I've seen the sad side of the people who haven't leveraged, someone who could help them with strategy and haven't had the right systems to be effective. So they've put hours and sometimes years into a podcast only to maybe get some audience, maybe get some of their friends and family to like it. Maybe it's getting them some business, but the ones who are really effective, they have the right strategy and systems. They are actually knocking it out of the park and having consistent, proven results. So that's what I really love about some of the things that you've got in your book is you really outline the framework of, this is what you need to do in order to make this work.
And I always tell people, we're all grown adults. You don't have to do anything, but I'll tell you the system that works. If you want to follow that, that's fine. If you say, do I have to do this part of it? No, you're a grown person. You don't have to do it. But, I remember in high school baking a cake for my girlfriend.
Build a cake.
And, you know, this is the first and last cake I think I ever baked. And I'm following the recipe and it's like baking soda, baking powder, something like that. I don't know what it is. It only needed a little bit of it. I don't like the taste of that, right? It must not be important. I just left that out. Well, it would find out it was an important ingredient. So you can do, 90% of the recipe, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if you skip that 10% or don't know about that 10%, you're not going to get the results that everybody else is.
You do it in the wrong order too, right? Well,
True.
You missed a little step. You put the eggs in there, but you didn't take out the shell, so that it kind of ruined it a little bit. And in the little differences, like right now, I look in your bookshelf, and I would think this was strategically done. I would think it's strategically done. You got a copy of the book, Amplified Business Breakthroughs, and this is something I sent to you, and I could tell. I would think this is strategically done. Was that strategically placed for this interview? Or were you just like, I was reading it every day and I just happened to put it there?
I must admit, I have been reading it, but it was strategically placed there too.
So,
And that's one of those things where people always look, hey, what's books on your bookshelf? And so, yeah, I will move those around depending on the audience I'm talking to.
right. You got niche down, very smart, you got the Interview Valet. Will Brand right up there. I'm like thinking, oh man, why don't I have one of those? But those are the little things, little touch points here and there, little things that you could do in your interview, or if you're the host, that can make a big difference on the results you get from it. And so that's what I really can admire. One of the key concepts that I share is it's this slight changes in a few different areas that again can make the exponential big results. Small hinges swing big doors. So a couple of questions I'll ask you real quick. What has been the biggest challenge that you faced when looking to grow and put out your business? Some of the things that we talk about in this community is being a little bit vulnerable and saying, some of the challenges that we've had, because we all learn from other people's challenges as well.
For me, it's the same thing that everybody else has, obscurity, right? There's a lot of people that we could help, but they just don't know about us.
Right.
And originally I was, I don't want to be the face of the company, right? I don't want this to be the Tom show. And so I pulled back sometimes from that of like not putting a face, a personality, a brand with it. But I think today more than ever, people want to buy from people they know, like, and trust.
Right.
A brand is not a logo. A brand is, hey, I've heard the founder. I want to work with them. I understand what they stand for. And so for me, that was a struggle, right? I didn't want to put my face out there too much on videos. I want to be the person in the book that designed the system. I'm the engineer, not the natural extrovert. So, for me, my first podcast, I was petrified. I'm not a natural speaker. When I first got invited to some of those podcasting conferences to speak, my pre-interview checklist was don't throw up, right? And now I've gotten more comfortable with it. So I think really being brave and putting it out there and saying, this is who we are. This is what we stand for. This is what we can help you with, and just putting it out there. And people either resonate with it or they don't. There's really two responses you get on a podcast. They'll either turn you off or turn you up. And you just want to make sure that you're clear on who you're talking to. And so for me, I think it was really that obscurity, and some of that obscurity was self-imposed.
I appreciate you sharing that, because I think it needs to be heard. Because I know that some people, they may be listening, may have that sort of mindset, like, I don't want to toot my own horn. I don't want to come across that way. But the concept that we've thought about is like, everyone has unique gifts and can really help those that they serve. But if you don't share it, if you don't put it out there, then people won't know. And we live in a culture, a society where, people will listen to a celebrity or listen to an influencer because they seem to have an idea of who that person is. They connect. It's conversations, right? So I definitely appreciate that you shining a light on that, because people who are a little bit reluctant, they don't want to come across in a way that is too much about them. When you're stepping into your zone, being authentic and genuine and just sharing yourself and how you help people, that really can make a big impact on how it's being received and the impact that you can make in the mission that you're serving.
There's a great video out there. Penn Jillette, the comedian, from, was it Penn and Teller? Remember a video he had one time, and he said, if you know you can help someone, how bad do you have to hate them not to say anything? And I never thought about that. Right. And it's like, I know I could help all these people, but you know what? I'm really not comfortable going on stage, or I'm not comfortable going on a podcast, right? It would be awkward, right? It would be awkward if I saw them crossing the street and there was oncoming traffic. It would be awkward to say something to them. And then you're like, how bad do you have to hate somebody not to say something when you can help them? And when he framed it that way, it's like, yeah, I just need to get over myself.
So if you're one of the ones tuning in right now who are thinking, I would like to do that, I think it would be great, but I don't know, I'm a little hesitant, jump into the water, take the plunge. You'll grow, and when you grow and challenge yourself, you'll be able to achieve new things. So it never hurts to give something a try and stretch yourself and your capabilities. So Tom, what is something that you're working on now that you'd like to share with the Growth Amplifiers community?
Well, it's really this whole teaching podcast interview marketing. And so a couple of years ago, put out the book. Just the audio book of Podcast Guest Profits is going to be released this fall.
Awesome.
And I sell a lot of those books, but I give more of them away than anything. So if anybody wants a copy of that and wants to learn, this is the recipe, this is how we do it, you can buy it on Amazon, or just go to interviewvalet.com/amplifiers, and you can just get a free copy there.
Definitely do that. So definitely do that. Can you tell us the URL one more time? People are like, wait, what was that?
Wait. So with that, it's just interviewvalet with a V, .com/amplifiers, and everything that Kenny and I talked about will be there in the book. I'll put, there's an assessment that we have, 12 questions to tell you how podcast interview marketing might work for you. And then finally, I'll put all my social media links, my calendar. So if you want to connect, you don't have to figure out which Tom Schwab in Kalamazoo I really am. So just interviewvalet.com/amplifiers.
So thank you very much for that offer. And I encourage you, if you're listening in, do this. It's a great book, and there's some helpful resources. One of the last things I'll share real quick, because sometimes we get in this mind frame, like, I already know this, right? I already kind of know what I need to know. But I always try to remind people there's knowing, and there's doing, and then there's getting the results. And if you don't have the results you want, and you think you've got a gap, right? So you're missing an ingredient. And so go ahead and just humor yourself. Don't think you know everything. That's what kids say when they're growing up. I know it. Oh, no. Do they know everything? it's a bad mindset. So get in the mindset that, hey, look, I'm going to check something out. And if I just picked up one thing, if I just learned how to make one more conversation that would be helpful, then that would be really rewarding. So any final thoughts you'd like to share as we're wrapping up?
I guess my plea to you is that if you heard this and it resonated with you, if you're like, I know I could help a lot of people if they only knew about me. Well, it's never been easier, right? To be a podcast host, to be a podcast guest. We don't have the excuses. Well, I don't have the money. I don't live in a big city. I live in Kalamazoo, Michigan. If I can do it from here, you can do it from anywhere. And if I can help you in any way, please let me know, because what's ordinary to you is amazing to others, and you could definitely help them.
I love it. Tom Schwab, Interview Valet, podcast guest profits right there. Trying to get that glare out of the way. Go there, get your free copy. Thank you, Tom, so much for checking in and sharing with the Growth Amplifiers community. We appreciate you, what you're doing, and excited to be connecting.
Kenny, thank you.
To show your support, take a moment to amplify this message by sharing it online. To connect with me or gain more business growth insights, visit www.growthamplifiers.com. Thank you for your support.